Okay, so we're back. So we are able to create and read all of the things and one of the things being the platoon. So we need to now to be able to update and destroy as well. So what we're going to do next is we are here on the all page. When we go to an individual show page, let's create maybe a link for edit and a link for destroy. So first things first, let's go to our show page. I'm going to use the link to helper for two different things. First, I'll just do one at a time. Let's do edit first. So edit is the word that shows up on the page, and the second argument is where this link is going to go. So I can say, like, I can make it to https www.google.com, and then if I refresh the page, there it is. We're going to go to google.com, but that's not exactly where we want to go. So I'm going to throw a quick break at the end of the line here. So it goes on a new line. There we go. So using what we know, which path can I use underneath bundle exec Rails routes?
Edit.
Yep, edit platoon, and then either underscore URL or path. I learned something new today. I didn't realize that URL works, but I'm going to go with path. We go here, I refresh the page. Platoon/1, when I hover over this, to bottom left-hand corner, /platoon/1/edit. Click this, everything's going to blow up. I don't have an edit action, and I don't have an edit view. Fairly quick. Def edit. Show, where are you? Show, there you are. Right now, I just want to take a look at the form. So when I go here, I'm going to jump. Where did you go? Views. There you go. Edit.html.erb. I'm going to do this. Edit. Platoon.name. See if this works. Might be wrong. All right, as of right now, you can kind of see I have this edit code platoon and then the name for echo and then update platoon. I didn't have to do really anything fancy here, but due to the fact that like I didn't even have like when you go to /platoon/new, you can kind of see it says platoon name. There's nothing there, and it has create platoon as well. But when you go to /platoon/1/edit, like it automatically fills it in, and it automatically has something that says update. Again, it's one of those things that because we're doing this so often, Rails kind of knows it ahead of time and just puts it in for you. So it knows that you're trying to edit echo platoon, and let's just, maybe we'll call this, we'll go back all the way to the front, we'll call this alpha. Update the platoon. This was going to blow up. It says action update could not be found in the platoon's controller, which means that create an update action. Update, and then I believe it's just @platoon equals platoon.find params ID. So you find it based off the parameters in the URL, and then @platoon.update attributes with platoon params. And then I'm going to redirect to @platoon. So I'm going to find it based off the URL. I'm going to update it based on what I pass in, and I'm going to redirect them with the updated version. Let's go back to the edit page, refresh. I'm going to change this back to alpha, update the platoon, and if all goes well, it'll take me to /platoon/1, and it'll be alpha platoon instead. You can kind of see alpha is platoon number 1, go back, and I have foxtrot and alpha. Number 2 for foxtrot and number 1 for alpha. Now, before we move any further, I'm going to say you can refactor some of the code on here. What do you think we can refactor? Yep, this platoon.find thing is happening quite often. So 1, 2, 3 times it's happening. So I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to have a before action. Is it before action? Yeah, I think so. Before action, find platoon only on this list of things. So I believe show, edit, and update. So this is basically, this line of code, this line 2 here, is saying that before anything happens, I want you to find the platoon. I want you to execute this particular method. And you can kind of see it says, oh, you're talking about line 35. So I want line 35 to be executed before show, edit, and update. Those actions are taken. Because you remember, we had find platoon for after line 8. We had find platoon after line 21, and find platoon after line 24. So we were repeating ourselves a bunch of times. And instead, I can just say it once, and then I can use it everywhere. So if all goes well, I think I can update everything. Now let's go back to Foxtrot, and we will have one that just says destroy. And then we'll move on to the nested portion. So when we go into our show, I'm going to create another break here. I'm going to have a link to. I'm going to delete. And which path am I going to use?
It's like tricky because you want to go back to the index.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. But first things first. Like I want to. When I click it, I want to actually delete it. So which path will this be going to? There's no prefix for it directly in front of it, but they're nested. So it's kind of like you see like platoon. When I do platoon path,
It's a get request.
So a delete request is not a get request. So what I was trying to go for is when you take a look at the prefixes here, when you use platoon's path, you can either do it as a get or a post. When you do a platoon path, you can do a get, patch, put, or delete. So all I need to do is do platoon path here, but by default, you can kind of see platoon path goes with a get. I need to overwrite the method to make it a delete. So I will just do method delete. So when I refresh this page, the delete shows up, and you can kind of see like what shows up on the screen is just /platoon/2. But when I click this link, it's actually not going to be a get action, it's going to be a destroy action. But it says there's no destroy. Okay, so I'll just do def destroy, and then I will do @platoon.destroy and redirect to platoon's path. So I'm going to do all the platoons again. Now, do you think this is going to work right off the bat?
Now you need to add in the before action.
Yep, I need to add in the before action. So I'm referencing @platoon here on line 30, but I didn't add it up here. So I'm going to do the same thing. Just add destroy. So before any action is taken, any of this show, edit, update, or destroy, before any of those actions are taken, I'm going to run this find platoon action. So let's see if this works again. Go here, refresh the page, I press this delete button. It takes me back to the original, and platoon/2 no longer exists. Foxtrot is not here. When I go to platoon/2, it's going to say I couldn't find an ID with number 2 because you've deleted it out of the database. But if I go to number 1, it's there. So this is CRUD with just a single resource using all the helpers. It doesn't take a terribly long amount of time. It's just a bunch of just memorization, doing it over and over and over again. 99.9 of your code, it will be CRUD apps when you start working. So make sure you have basic CRUD, like down pat. You can just do it like this. We stop recording here, and then we'll move on to, actually, I won't stop recording. We'll just move on to nested CRUD. All right, so every single platoon has students inside of it. So the idea behind this is I want to go to /1, and then I can see a list of all the students that are for this particular thing. So I can see all the students. I create new students that are associated with this particular platoon. I can update students related to this platoon, and I can delete students related to this particular platoon. So let's first create all of our routes. So we created the database right at the beginning. We created all the seed data right at the beginning. Let's create the routes that'll make this work. Now, this could be really, really painful. You could do like get /platoon/ID/students and stuff like that. You can write it all out. Or another helper for you. So you can see that students is nested within platoons. So with that, let's take a look at what we've got. So bundle exec Rails routes, right now we just have platoons. When I run it one more time with that nested resource, this is the result that I get. Oh, that almost worked perfectly. Okay, this is the result that I get. So again, all of these things remain the same. You can still see platoons, new platoon, edit platoon, and all of these are down here. But it also creates all of these extra things for me up here. So whenever anybody visits /platoon/platoon ID/students, I will see all of the students for that particular platoon. I can create new ones for that particular platoon. I can edit students. I can, see each individual student as well. So we're going to start off with the read. I just want to see everything that shows up. So here on this show page, maybe I will have a link under H2. Click. See all students. All right. So I want to see, again, I want to just have all of the students. So using these particular routes, which one of these paths is the right one to see all of the students? Platoon underscore students underscore what? Yep. Let's take a look. Refresh the page. Please do not blow up. Ah, man. All right. This blows up, and it says, but let's read it. It says, no route matches this. I'm missing a required key called platoon ID. Now, before we were able to just get away with, not needing to pass in an ID half the time, but because ID is no longer before when you passed in anything, it was always saved as ID. When you're dealing with nested resources like this, the issue is when you're talking about ID, are you talking about platoon ID or are you talking about the student's ID? So you need to be very specific with what you were passing in. So when I do platoon students path, they don't know what the platoon ID is. So I'm just going to tell them. Platoon ID is going to be at platoon.id. So I refresh the page. It says click here to see all the students, and you can kind of see on the bottom left-hand corner, localhost 3000 /platoon/1/students. Click all this, and it blows up.
I think you could pass it in without the key.
That is correct. That's what I was. Yeah, that is also correct. So Raymond was saying you don't necessarily need to pass in the platoon ID like this. You can actually just pass in the entire object, and then it will actually infer that for you. Let's verify that is the case before I move forward. Highlight it over. Yep, /platoon/1/students. The only reason that this works right now is because there's only one ID to look for. This will blow up when you have two IDs to look for. I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this works right now because there's only one ID that you're looking for. So when we click this, blows up saying, hey, there's no students controller. Not an issue. Under app controllers, I'll create a new file called students controller, RB. Let me throw this up here. I don't think we're dealing with Platoon's controller anymore, so I'm just going to put this out. Now, what you'll realize, tell me one thing that you notice about all the URLs under the students controller.
They all need to find a Platoon ID.
They all need a Platoon ID. So if you look under the students controller, all these actions, all these URIs, every single one needs a Platoon ID. Simple for me. I don't need to write that every single time. I can just do before action for everything, find Platoon. And I can create that as a private method. All right. And it says there's an uninitialized students controller. Refresh this page. Let's see what we get. It says the action index could not be found for students controller. Okay. F index. And then with that, because I have a new controller, I'm going to create a new view folder called students. The students one will also have a new inside of it, index. And what do I need to do? I probably need to find all the students. So maybe I'll create an H1. So all students for at platoon.name platoon. Then I will do the same thing as I did over here. But instead of platoons, I'm going to do students. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. I'm going to change this real quick to just Google. All I've done is I've just more or less copied everything from index under platoons and put it inside of students. First line says all students for, hopefully this says echo platoon or something like that. At students each do student. So if I'm using the variable called at students, which that means I have to create an at students inside of here. I'll just do at students equals at platoon.students. Hopefully this works. Let's see what happens. So it says could not find platoon with ID. Well, we deleted a whole bunch of stuff. Shall we? Let's go back and start over. Do not have this as an alias. I do this because I'm lazy. So this is drop, create, migrate, and seed all at one time. You can kind of see how lazy I am at this point. Like I have YOLO and S. I might as well just make it YOLO S, and then it'll do that. YOLOs, yeah, exactly. So if all goes well, let's take a look at all of my platoons. There should only be one. We can create, read, update, and destroy all of these. And under here, I can see, I want to see all the students that I have. So I'm going to click here, and it says couldn't find platoon with ID equals. Man, I kind of confused of why that is an issue. Let's read that carefully. It says on line 11 of students controller, it says I could not find platoon with an ID number.
Do instead of find platoon, also find student.
Nope. Let's put a binding pri right here. We're here, stuck in a pri session. Let's take a look at what params is. What do you notice about what I'm looking for? Look at line 12 and look at the different keys that are inside of parameters.
It's called Platoon ID, not Platoon.
Yep. It's not ID. It's called Platoon ID. It's not ID. I'm gonna just change that and let's see what we get. Platoon ID, remove the pry. Exit here. It's gonna blow up. It said I couldn't find it, so that's a 404. Go back to Platoon/1. Bam. Let's see it. Okay. So it says wrong number of expected arguments. I was given 2, but I expected none. Okay. All right. All right. So we're on to something. All right. So now we have all of the students for Echo Platoon. I mean, unfortunately, everyone's going to google.com right now because we haven't gotten to that point. But you can kind of see this is the way that I set it up in order to get all the students to even show up. So I'm able to read all of the students. I want to read each individual student at this particular point. So instead of going to google.com, I'm going to change this second part to go to that each individual student. So using Rails routes, what do I type? How do I get there?
Platoon student.
Platoon student. Okay. Sure. I like it. Platoon student path. Let's see it. Fresh. All right, a whole bunch of stuff is broken. It's saying that I'm missing the keys ID. Okay, so it looks like I have Platoon ID goes to 1, and I'm missing this particular ID. So it looks like I need to pass in ID, or I can pass in the entire object. Let's see if this works. Nope, it's very angry with me. It wants ID. All right, let's take a look. So you can kind of see I have student/1, student/2, 3, 4, 5, and I think we're good. I'm going to pause for a second right here and see if people are struggling to understand why this works or how this works. Let me do Rails routes on the bottom here so that we can keep it all in one place. Nope, that's terrible. So
you deleted the student.last name, and
I did.
Was that?
Nope, I can do this.
I was like expecting. That was like taking that as an argument.
Yes, it was. I think this will work. Let's find out. No. It's just. This might actually just turn up as student.first name, student.last name. Oh, yep. Whoops, my bad. I'll figure this one out. I'm just going to go with first name for now. All right. So we're able to see all of the students, and we want to see each individual one as well. So when I hover over each one of these, I want to make sure that it's going to the right student. You can kind of see it's going in the right direction. Now, how did I get to that point? So I said I want to create a link using the link to helper method. The first argument is what shows up on the page, and that's why we see Raymond, Sharif, and Aaron, and everybody on there. The second argument goes to where it's going to go next, like what path it's actually going to go to. Now, if I look at Platoon student path, which is right here, it needs two things. The first thing is the Platoon ID, and also it needs the ID number of the student. Platoon ID is given to us for free because we're already on that. We're already there. Like Platoon ID is already given to us. But it needs to you need to provide an ID of the student. which is why I passed the ID number directly inside of here. So we're able to see all the students. Let's click this. Obviously, this is going to blow up. There's no show for the students controller. Not an issue. We'll figure it out. So def show. And then with that, I'm going to have a show.html.erb. Maybe we'll do add student equals student.findParams ID. I believe it's just looking for the ID number here, so I think we're good. And maybe we'll just do I don't know. First name is going to be a student. First name. Let's refresh this and see what happens. So we have first name Raymond, last name Miranda, platoon name Echo. Let's make these actually just H3s for now. We can see first name, last name, and then platoon name. Maybe we'll have a link to go back, perhaps.
How did you do that with the keys?
With the keys? So I have multiple cursors. So let's say I want to go to the beginning of this line. I have two options. One of them is I hold the command key and I can click a whole bunch of times, and then I have different cursors. So I'm literally moving different cursors at different points. The other option that you can do is press an area, hold Option, and then just drag it down. Otherwise, I would have to go otherwise I have to go at the beginning of each line, H3, closing each line, H3. But so I just had multiple cursors. This, went to the end of the line and wrote something.
Did you write it or did you press tab?
I just wrote to close the H3. Let's see. So this is what it was before. I was like, oh man, I don't want to go to the end of each line. Everyone's going to die of boredom. So I just did this command, go to the end of the line. And then when I do a closing tab, because H3 is an opening tab already, it knows to close it for you. Link to go back. Link to back. And then where am I going with this? So I'm on each individual student. I want to go to all the students.
Students.
Yep, platoon students path. We can go back now. Okay, so you can kind of see, you can read all of the students. You can click on each individual student. Now I'm going to create and then update, destroy. So this should be pretty quick. So here, same thing as before. I'm on the index page of all of the students, and I'm going to create the new for up here. So I'm going to create a link to something. Create a new student, and then I need it to go somewhere. Again, tell me where to go of all of these things here. I want to create a new student. I want to see the form.
Platoon students post?
Nope. I want to see just the form. Yep. Refresh the page. Create a new student. You can kind of see on the bottom left-hand corner, /platoon/1/student/new. Click this. There's no new action yet, so that's not an issue. We can do that. Create def new. And we do add student equals student.new. We will create a new student for up here. And I'm just going to copy and paste. Create a new student, form for @student. I'm going to do first name and then last name. Change these to first name.
Is Platoon 2 read, or is it already gonna put it in the Platoon area?
That's a good question. We'll find out. So we'll refresh this page. Hopefully it shows up. Ooh, it says there's an undefined method students path. Huh. Let's go back to form 4. We'll type in nested resource. All right, so let's take a look at this first one. I have a 2-part question. Let's say I'm writing blah, blah, blah. So it looks like this person has articles which have comments. Oh, okay. Looks like I can just do it like this. Let's go to new. Where's my new? Form 4. Looks like the first resource is going to be @Platoon and then @student. This is what happens with nested. See if this works. Please work. Nice. All right. So let's see what we get. Let's put in John Young. Create the student. It's obviously going to blow up at this particular point because there's no create action. Not an issue. Now we're going to do @student equals student.new. Create with student params. Then redirect to. We'll just redirect to Google for now.
I noticed the difference from yesterday's class. In every action, pretty much at the bottom of every action, we have to put render and the name of the view and then pass in locals. But in your case, you don't have to.
So render with locals works with Sinatra.
Okay.
The Rails one by default will look for, so it's like you see for new, I'm not telling it to render anything, right? So the new here basically is going to say, okay, if you're not going to tell me what to do, I'm going to automatically infer that there is a students view folder with a new template in there. So students view folder and the new template's right there. Create, on the other hand, does not have its own individual template. Look down here, there's no create. So what happens is I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to do. You can either render like new, I can redirect you to something that does exist, or like for me, I'm just going to redirect to Google for right now.
So we don't need.
You don't need the render with the locals.
Okay.
Yeah, some people prefer that. That's just people transitioning from Sinatra over to Rails. Let's see if this works. I'm not sure it does. Try here. Let's see what we get. All right, so I'm going to go back here, create the student, and we're stuck in a pry session. Take a look at what student params gives us, and we're going back to Sharif's question. So we go to params. So you can kind of see that you were wondering, like, do we need to pass in a Platoon ID? It actually comes for free based off of the URL. So we have a student, we have first name, last name. We also have @Platoon already because we made that a before action for everything. So it's like based on, no matter what action you're taking, you already know what Platoon you're talking about. So I'm going to create a kind of a special student params method down here. It's def student params. I'm going to create a hash, so I'll call this output. actually. What I'm going to do is params that require, I think it's student, and I'm only going to permit the things called first name and last name inside. And then I'm going to, let's say output equals this, and then I'm going to merge Platoon ID, because a student belongs to a platoon, to at platoon.id. If this works.
First name and name. Select.
Run this and see if it works. So when I have a variable called output where I require everything that I want, but this is missing a platoon ID, so I'm merging that in separately. That's the choice that I'm deciding to make here. I think this works. Let's see if this works. All right, so I'm going to exit the prize session. Everything's going to blow up. That's fine. I'm going to go to /student/new one more time. John Young, create the student, and I got redirected to Google. So it looks like it worked correctly. Let's go back to Code Platoon Rails. We're going to go to all the students. And John is at the very bottom. John Young for Echo Platoon. That looks good to me. Instead of redirecting to Google, we're going to redirect them to that particular student, which is Platoon student with the ID number of that new student that I just created. So I'm going to redirect to Platoon student path, where the ID is at student.id. I'm going to create one more student, Rod Levy, create the student, and then it's going to redirect me to that particular student at the end. Now, this is the most difficult portion of nested CRUD, which is the creation. So let's go back real quick. We're going to start off with the form. The form is where most people get hung up. Now, before when we were doing a new with the platoon, we can just do at platoon because it's only one resource. It's not nested in any way. When you are doing a nested resource, you need to know both the parent that it's coming from as well as the child, like the current one that you're doing. So all I'm really doing instead of just doing form for at student is it form for with the square brackets, the parent, which is the platoon it's coming from, and then this is the record that I'm writing into. That's all I needed to do in order to keep track of both the platoon and the student. When you hit the submit button, it comes into here to the create. So I'm creating a student based off of student params. Now inside those params, if you take a look inside the form, I was only passing in first name and last name. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm only going to allow the first name and last name to come in, and then I'm going to merge in the platoon ID because every single student belongs to one platoon. So I need to merge those two things in. You can either put it inside the params private method down here, or you can pass a hidden thing that says like the platoon ID is actually going to be at platoon.id. It's your call and which one you would prefer to do. So moving on, just for time's sake, we are able to create and read all of the students. We're able to create new students. We're able to read all the students. We're able to read individual students. Now we're going to do the same thing with update and delete. So under the show for students, I'm going to have BR. I'm going to do edit and delete. So which path am I going to use in order to edit the student? Yep, edit platoon student underscore path. Let's refresh this page. It says it already knows the student number, so we don't actually need to pass anything in. So when I click on this, unknown action, I couldn't edit it. Okay, I'll do def edit. Create an edit down here. And this is the same thing as new, so I'm just going to grab this and throw it in here. Edit, and then I'll do add student.firstname. See if this works. I have a Where's my students controller? Def edit. So I need to find the student again. At student.find. Where's my student? Params ID. We're back over here, and you can kind of see it says edit Rod. It has Rod and Levy in here. So let's do Levy with a 1 at the end, and we're going to hit the update student. This goes well. It doesn't. It blows up. It goes to says you cannot do this because you need to update it. Fairly simple. Def update. I'm going to find the student one more time. I'm going to add student def update attributes with the student params, and then I'm going to redirect them again. Back to this form right here. Rod Levy 1, 2, 3. Update the student. It updates them and then sends them back over here.
Go back to your edit view real quick.
Sure. So this is the controller. This is the edit view. Again, I'm just copying this. This form is identical to the new, which gives me one particular opportunity to probably refactor. If these two things are the same, except for the first line, you can probably create this inside of a partial and just render it. We talked about partials yet? So just to reiterate, a partial is stands for partial view. All I'm going to do is just grab this, dump it inside of here. I'll save this as _form.html.erb.
What gives it the already values? It's the colon first name and colon last name.
It is at Platoon and at student that give the values.
So that's what already puts in what's.
So because new and edit have the exact same form, I'm just going to do, I think it's called render partial Rails. How do I do it? Show me. Using render. Render, I believe it is. Is it render form? And same thing here. Render form. If all goes well, you can kind of see edit only has the word edit inside of it, and then it says render form. That means this particular partial is in charge of taking care of all the views. If it goes well, I can refresh this page, and it still works. So just to go back and to reiterate one more time, I have the edit page. The edit page, I'm finding the student, and then I'm loading up the edit.erb. Right over here, I'm loading this form up. The form lives inside of the form partial. So when I hit update, when I hit the submit button, it updates over here. And then finally, we have one called destroy. I'm going to do that one really fast so I can get to questions. I'm going to find the student, student.destroy. And I'm going to redirect to I'm going to go back to Platoon students path. I need where's my show? There it is. All goes well, I can delete Rod, and then Rod no longer exists. If I go to John, I delete John. John also no longer exists. One last little bit. If you take a look here, I'm finding my student a bunch of times. So I'm going to do a before action for find student for the following actions. Show, click edit, update, and destroy. It's all together. that should do it. So let's see if we can do all of the things. So for our first resource, we're able to see all of them. We can create them, edit and delete. Everything looks good to me. We can see all the nested students for each individual platoon. I can see each individual one. I can edit and I can delete them, and I can also create them. I'm going to fix up a few things inside of here and then send it out to everybody just so you have some boilerplate code to go with. But I hope this was helpful in terms of like nested CRUD. I'm going to stop recording here and go for questions.